Good morning and welcome to BeeferLink TV, your daily dose of industry information. In part 3 of our insurance series, we meet Daniel Wright. Daniel works for Macbeth Insurance Brokers, and here we are today to talk about the freight forwarder's liability policy. So thank you very much for joining us, Daniel. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Macbeth's?
Yep, thank you for having me, first and foremost. So I'm from Macbeth Insurance Brokers. I work in the cargo and logistics team, and I've been doing it for 17 years now. It's gone by quite quickly. And I do specialise in freight forwarders, cargo owners. We do a little bit of charterers liability as well. So yeah, that's why I'm here and that's why I'm talking about this today.
Sure. So my first question for you is, what does a Beefer member need their insurance policy to cover?
So the freight liability policy, first and foremost, needs to cover liability for loss and damage to customers' goods.
Sure.
And that starts with the Beefer terms and conditions stipulating what that liability is. So when they contract to move something, they have a liability for it. The Beefer terms and conditions state that liability is the value of the goods, or 2 SDRs a kilo, which is about £2.10 at today's exchange rates, I believe. So if something's lost or damaged, it's either the value or that £2.10 a kilo. That's the starting point. It needs to extend to cover liability that increases as a result of international conventions that apply, such as CMR, Warsaw, Montreal, Hague, Visby rules. So you could go from 2 SDRs under Beefer to 8.33 SDRs under CMR, for example, plus duty, carriage and other charges. So that's what it firstly needs to take care of. It also needs to take care of errors and omissions that can be incurred, specifically clerical errors and omissions as an extension onto the policy. There are other items that you do get as standard, such as cover for general average. You can get a guarantee from your insurer for general average in the event your cargo owners can't guarantee payment under their own cargo insurance if they don't have it. So that's the starting point as to what they need to do.
Sure. So you touched on errors and omissions as well. There's cover within Beefer's STCs, isn't there? So how is this covered in the insurance policy?
So again, under clause 26, errors and omissions, you have a cap of 75,000 SDRs for errors and omissions. Now, errors and omissions we see are things like misrouting, mislabeling of goods, customs issues, for example, and it caps your liability to that 75,000 SDRs, which is about £80,000 there or thereabouts.
Okay. And members can check out, we've got a good practice guide, haven't we, that's dedicated to the role of a customs agent. So they can refer to that for some more information as well, can't
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
One of the issues we see at the moment, which the Beefer guides are quite good at addressing, is the difference between direct and indirect representation.
Gotcha.
So where a customs agent will deal with a UK cargo owner, clear goods here in the UK, the Beefer terms starts by stating that you are a direct representative, i.e., I, the customs agent, will get these goods cleared, and you, the cargo owner, will pay the duty to customs, and you are responsible for that duty.
Sure.
Where you become an indirect representative is where you're not doing it for a UK cargo owner as a direct representative and someone outside of the UK. You can contract as a direct representative, but HMRC will deem you an indirect representative because they can't get their money directly from the person overseas. So they will make you, as the UK freight agent, responsible for duty and VAT. Not all policies will give you cover for that standard. Talk to your broker and make sure you get the cover in place for that.
And my next question is, Daniel, are there any requirements that our members should be following?
Yes, there are. I'm going to quote Robert.
Okay.
Incorporate, incorporate, incorporate. I can't shout that from the rooftops enough. I've got a customer that was £40,000 out of pocket where they didn't incorporate their terms and conditions and they couldn't rely on them for loss and damage, for the liability, loss and damage section. That would have been a £3,500 claim. Wow. So they were personally £40,000 out of pocket as a business. They're a limited company. They could stomach the loss. But, you know, the impact of you, if you were operating as a sole trader, you know, it's then your personal assets that are then at risk. So incorporate your terms and conditions, follow the Beefer guidelines. If you're not sure on them, call Beefer, call us, call your broker, whoever you need to talk to make sure you are incorporating them, because if you're not, you cannot rely on them.
Sure.
You've got the Beefer toolkit as well, the Beefer guides that customers can follow. We also have our own online, many good brokers do. So incorporation is the first big point. I can't shout from the rooftops enough about that, because even today, not everyone does it. I will still get an email from someone who does not have the incorporation statement on their email footer. It's so important. And Just as a general recommendation, if you've got the incorporation statement, make sure it states the current edition of BIFA.
Sure.
So the statement, all business of the company is transacted in accordance with the current edition of the BIFA standard trading conditions.
Gotcha.
That way, when BIFA do update them in future, because there will be updates, the world changes, you automatically move to the current version, the new version. I see customers that still have 2005A stated on their terms and conditions, which are well out of date.
Yeah.
So incorporation is the first point. It's a requirement. If you don't do it, your policy won't respond. Next point is checking subcontractors. Make sure that they are insured to carry your goods. You can give goods to an RHA member, for example, who will probably have a £50,000 limit and a UK territorial limit. But if he goes to Europe, or she, they're not got cover for European road freight. So they've given you an evidence of cover document, but it's not covered to do what you're doing them to do. That's a very basic example. We could go on to talk about, are they covered to carry the types of goods that you're carrying? You know, are they carrying hazardous goods? Are they carrying theft attractive goods? Are they covered to carry them? So checking subcontractors is another important point. It's a requirement that you check them. And when you check them, you need to make sure that they're valid and that they're covered for doing the job you are giving them to do ultimately. Because if they're not, you've then got a problem with your policy.
Sure. There's lots of variables, right? As you said, that's just a basic example you gave earlier, but there's so many more others.
Yep. You could give someone, for example, you can give someone goods, for example, that they think they're covered for that they may not be. There are various different types of hazardous goods. They may be covered for some, but not others.
And in terms of a policy, are there any other usual exclusions we should be, thinking about?
Most common ones are things like war, terrorism, sanctions. It's not a requirement of the policy, it's a legal requirement. Customers need to make sure that freight forwarders need to make sure that they are carrying out sanctions checks to make sure they're not dealing with sanctioned individuals or sanctioned goods. Very recently, we've had to change sanctions in Israel, for example. So they are ever changing, they're ever evolving. Make sure you stay on top of those. Specifically, when it comes to an individual's policy, you want to make sure that it's covering the territories for which you move goods. Majority of people watching this will probably say, well, I send goods worldwide. Policies will start on a worldwide basis. They will have, some of them will have exclusions at the moment. The most common ones I'm seeing are Russia, Ukraine, Belarus. Russia's an important one because whilst you may not send goods to or from Russia, when you're bringing goods in from China, if you've got issues with shipping lanes, a lot of people will opt for the Siberian Railway. Well, you're going through Russia, that's an excluded territory. Bear factors like that in mind. Other policies will have numerous excluded territories listed on the policy. So definitely pay attention to them and talk to your broker about where you're moving goods to and from, where your main routes are, because they're the ones that you want to make sure definitely are covered and pay particular attention to. We've covered off the routes. On the types of cargo that you could potentially move, there are excluded and restricted goods. Things like human remains, high value theft attractive goods, mobile phones, and certain types of hazardous goods. We've got the Export Control Order 2008. So if someone's asking you if you are moving goods that require an export license, majority of the time, yes, I'm exporting, I need an export license, but specifically under the Export Control Order. And that is for goods that can be used for military purposes. It could be an ex-MOD vehicle, for example, that has mountings for all sorts of things. So they would need a specific Export Control Order license. The types of goods that you're moving, you need to pay attention to because there are restricted and excluded goods on a policy. So ultimately, to finish up, insurance is a partnership. A freight forwarder and an insurance broker, they need to work together to make sure that the freight forwarder knows what they're covered for. And if you as a freight forwarder don't know what you're covered for, call your broker, speak to them, ask the questions. If you're not satisfied you're covered or you know what you're paying for, then we've not done our job as a broker. That's the most important thing that I can drill home, is that it's a partnership. We work together and keep in touch. If things change, the business develops, you move in a different direction, pick the phone up, say I'm doing this, I've now got a new route to America, I've got a new route from China, whatever it may be, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we have to give some useful advice for members as well.
Yeah, love to.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you very much, Daniel, for your time this morning. Everything we've gone through has been really valuable for our members, I'm sure. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We've mentioned quite a few different good practice guides in this episode, so they can be found on bifa.org. We'll pop the link in the video's description. That's all for today's episode of BeeferLink TV, your daily dose of industry information.